Hello. Hello. I think we're running a little bit over time, so I'm going to try and condense this down as quickly as possible, but still remaining intelligent, so we'll see how that goes. Vend is an online platform that we're a retail platform. So we provide point-of-sale, inventory management, CRM, loyalty, and lots of other things to bricks and mortar retailers in over 100 countries. We launched only a few years ago. This is a typical Vend store. Retail is all about the experience. So what we focus on is building a beautiful product that move the technology out of the way of the retailer. So you can see this is the Cool Hunter. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Cool Hunter, but they did a pop-up store in Melbourne and Sydney, powered by Vend. And if you look at the photos, you can't spot the retail checkout because they use Vend on iPads, and they created this really beautiful retail experience, which up until about maybe 3 years ago, they couldn't do because the technology wasn't there. So we started off about 3 years ago. At the end of 2011, it was just me. I was the crazy idiot who thought of the idea and built the software. And then we did something relatively unique to, well, software companies in New Zealand anyway, is we went out and raised some capital. So I brought on board a couple of guys from TradeMe, and they put in some seed capital into the business. And then that let me grow to 11 people. And it's amazing what you can do with 11 people, right? We all, in the early days, you are pretty much having to do everything, the master of many hats, juggling many balls. But a little bit of capital, a modest amount of investment allowed us to grow to 11 people. And then a year later, we were 40 people. So we went out and did something, again, quite unheard of. We went and raised more money. And so we brought on a couple of extra rounds. So we raised about 3 mil of investment, both domestically and offshore. So we brought in some money from Germany, of all places, which was completely unheard of, right? For a software company in New Zealand to raise money and bring in money from Germany. Our goal is for this time next year, we're going to be 140 people. So we just closed another capital raising round last week. We raised another 8 mil of funding. So last week was a pretty crazy week for us. We won the High-Tech Award for Exporter of the Year under 5 mil and the Service Product category, which was just amazing. So raising 8 mil, winning some awards. I'm hoping this week's going to be a lot better. And so we're not just about raising money and hiring people. As you can see by this chart of bars, that keeps going up. We're having relative success, and we're continuing to grow and grow and grow. So how did we get to 100 countries, right? So I feel kind of embarrassed standing here in front of a room full of very smart people who are exporting and probably know a lot more about exporting than I do. Whereas 3 years ago I wasn't an exporter, and then suddenly we're exporting to 100 countries. So I want to talk about a little bit about our approach. We have a unique culture in Vend. We're a software startup, so we like to dress up like zombies and a few other things. So culture is very important to us, and this is one of the great exports that New Zealand companies have. One of our great assets is we have a slightly different attitude, and we have a unique culture. Not everybody in the world views us like Flight of the Conchords, although we can leverage off that to a certain extent. And so our goal is to make sure that we're delivering delight to retailers all around the world. So that's why culture is important to us, because if we're seen to be having fun and doing things with, for the purpose of delivering delight to retailers, then that comes through in our branding, and our retailers really pick up on that. And that's half the battle won, right? If you win the cultural battle, that's half the battle won. And by any means. So we like to break rules. So if it means we need to grab a bat and make a piñata of a cash register and smash it to bits, then that's what we'll do. So 100 countries, right? So we're actually in more than 100 countries. I sort of stopped counting at 100. I don't even know how many countries there are. That's kind of embarrassing as well. So more than 100, I guess. Now, so a few months ago, I attended a really interesting session called the Moxie Sessions, and Tony Alexander from the BNZ was there, and he blew my mind. He talked us through a paper that he wrote a couple of years ago that catalogued all of our cultural deficiencies and ineptitudes, and basically was a rule book of what not to do when doing business on the world stage. And as he went through it, it was really interesting. So, one of his points, there's about 11 points. I'm only going to go through a couple of them. but you can probably all resonate with them all as we go through them. So we like to avoid failure. Kiwis, we don't like to fail. Nobody likes to fail, but in New Zealand we've got it particularly tough because if we fail, then we kind of get the boot in, and everybody says, "Yeah, I told you you'd fail." And if we, heaven forbid, we actually succeed, then it's kind of like, tall poppy, The second point he raised was that we fall into this trap of thinking that the rest of the world thinks like us. So we consume media from the US and the UK, and we observe the world, and we kind of identify, we kind of adjust our culture to be based on what we consume in the media and on TV. And we think the reverse is true, that the rest of the world thinks like us as well, and they don't. Shocker. Low assertiveness, we don't thump our chest, we don't pound the table, and we don't say, "We're fucking awesome," and we should, If everybody, there's probably a large number of you who've been to the US, the Americans are born with the default position of like, "Fuck yeah!" And we think that, but we don't, say, "That's all right. Yeah, we're doing okay." And as Tony was going through this, I was like, "Fuck you, Tony. This is all really negative shit," And then he went on to point 4, which is like we don't like to give or receive feedback, especially negative feedback. And so I won't focus on our weaknesses. So this is the paper. You can, if you go to Tony's website, tonyalexander.co.nz, and just search on his website for our cultural deficiencies. It's really, really interesting. But like I said, as he went through it, I was identifying with every single point on it, going, "Yeah, we used to do that, but we changed." And so I'm not going to talk too much about that because it's a great paper. So what I thought I'd talk about is a couple of secret weapons that we identified going through this process that we think give us an advantage. So the first of all is that we have a digital export, right? So we export software. So we don't have to put things in containers and put them on boats. We all know where we are. We're down here. It was really, anybody notice in Peter's slide how massive New Zealand was? So that's the attitude, right? I'm going to borrow that slide and use that in my presentations from now on. But and so we put some servers here, which is roughly around where Chicago is, I think. And from there, we send our product via the internet to over 100 countries, right? So we've got an incredibly talented group of people in New Zealand. We put our software in the US and we distribute it from there. And so that's the benefit of that is obvious. It's instant. As soon as we finish writing the first version of the product, we literally pushed a button and we were selling that product all around the world. So that's really, really cool. Secret weapon number 2 is that we take a worldview of the world. We're great travelers. New Zealanders like to think of themselves as great travelers. We do our OEs and things. So this is where all of our natural competitors live for Vend. There's half a dozen or so of them, and they all live in the US. And this is their worldview. So they focus primarily on the US market. But as you can see, we're quite a long way away from the US, and so by geography, if we're exporting to the US, we might as well export anywhere. So we need to leverage off our unique worldview. Secret weapon number 3 is we have a fucking airline, so we should use it, So it's not that hard to fly to San Francisco. It's a 12-hour flight. It'd be nice if Air New Zealand upgraded the plane, but you can have a meal, have a sleep, and watch a movie, and then you're there. Something that New Zealanders don't do enough of, and it's something we've heard time and time again today already, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about it, is that you've got to go to your market. They don't think like us. And we think we can observe the market from afar, but we can't. We need to be on the ground, meeting people and talking to people. And this amazed me because we, very early on, we went to San Francisco. We opened an office there, we met with Google, we met with Intuit, we met with PayPal, we met with Groupon. Anybody we wanted to meet with, I just dropped them an email and said, "Hey, I'm in town. Do you want to catch up and talk about what we're doing?" But by virtue of us actually being there, making the effort to go there and meet with them, the doors opened. We never received a no. And so that's also our secret weapon number 4, is that this is a pretty typical world map, right? And so this is how Americans think how we got to the US. It's like, holy fuck, you flew all the way over Australia and Africa and pretty much the whole world to get here. And so, they think that's pretty cool. It's kind of like, yeah, you've come all this way. We'll take you to dinner. Whereas, actually, we took the shortcut and went the other way. Our last secret weapon, and this is something that we take from our core values within Vend. We make sure we've got 3 core values in Vend, and JFDI is number 3. So bringing delight to retailers is number 1. And doing hard stuff is really important to us. So this one resonates the most with our team, probably because it's got a swear word in it. But you know what? This is something that New Zealanders do really well. We don't let barriers get in the way. We do impossible. We take inspiration from other New Zealanders who do other impossible things, and we go, yeah, he looks like me. I could probably climb that mountain, metaphorically. But we like to do impossible things, and so let's not stop doing that. Thank you very much.